Oh. So this is new. Alright guys, welcome to a brand new series here on Philly Sports Network, where if you've guessed by the title, we're taking a look at everything that's happened in the last 7 days in the world of Philadelphia sports. And I feel like we've had quite a good week to start this off. I mean, we've had Nick Foles entering free agency, we've had Markelle Fultz disappearing, there's a new big man in Philadelphia, there's a lot to get through. So if you like this kind of content, guys, it's something completely new, make sure you're slamming that subscribe button as well. Hit the like button if you enjoy what we do, and don't forget you've got merchandise in the link in the description, and of course you can follow our content daily at phillysportsnetwork.com. But it's only right that we start things off with the saga of Nick Foles, and one that's ultimately going to come to an end in Philadelphia very, very soon. So literally on the day I uploaded a video highlighting every possible scenario for the Eagles and Nick Foles, they just decide to, you know, expedite the process and get things sped up. So thanks for that, boys. Really good way to make my video valid for a solid 7 minutes. That was really appreciated. Nice one. So essentially what happened, reports came out citing that the Eagles were indeed intending to exercise the $20 million option on Nick Foles' contract. This would of course give the team some flexibility, but more intentionally a window to trade the Super Bowl 52 MVP. And within about 6 minutes, Nick Foles turned around and goes, Nah, just wanna go to free agency, actually, wanna choose my own team. And now the Eagles are left in a bit of a tricky situation, because if they want to trade Nick Foles, they're gonna have to put a franchise tag on him. And everyone on Twitter seems to get very lost in this fact that tag and trades are the new thing. They're not. I mean, even the Matt Castle deal back in 2009 was, I was told by a source, kind of a bolt of lightning incident where they were very lucky the market picked up when it did. It's not something we see a lot. And if the intent behind that is for the Eagles to keep Nick Foles out of New York or Washington, you're essentially saying that Nick Foles out of New York or Washington is worth $25 million. Like, you could go anywhere but there, right? $25 million, that's the cost on it. Why isn't Nick Foles the starter, if that really is the... I mean, this is our first tea drink of the show. You know, have a nice little... That's kind of like paying your mate not to go and have sex with your ex, isn't it? Really? It's not really worth paying for. It's kind of expected that they don't do that, because, you know, you got a bromance there, so don't do it, alright? Oh, but... The Eagles are, of course, though, in a very odd situation right now. Their salary cap is off the books, which for a team battling against the cap room, having already had to reduce Rodney McLeod's contract to virtually gold dust in 2019, is a good sign. It means they can attack free agency, maybe get a couple of names. There won't be any groundbreaking names brought into this team, I don't think, but at least gives them a window to restructure more deals and potentially look at keeping some of their own free agents. As for Nick Foles himself, though, I do think he's going to end up potentially in Jacksonville or Miami. Those appear to be the two places that seem to be his best fit. Obviously in Jacksonville you've got DeFilippo, and in Miami you've got... Miami? They wear a nice uniform. They've got that going for them. Elsewhere in Eaglesville, there's been a real strain on coaching staff at the moment. I'm not sure if you've noted this, but over the last week or so, there have been some big names kind of coming in and out. It all started with the addition of former Dolphins defensive coordinator Matt Burke being a special aide to Jim Schwartz. So Matt, bless him, just going to sit on old Jim's shoulder and go, blitz, blitz, do it, do the thing, do the blitz, get him down. Like, I don't think Jim Schwartz needs that. I know Matt Burke has worked with Schwartz in previous years. He spent a lot of his career working under the tutelage of Jim Schwartz, but I don't feel like that was a needed hire. I feel like Jim Schwartz was kind of doing well enough on his own, really, having one of the most dominant front fours, a secondary that fell apart and somehow was still good enough to give the Chicago Bears havoc in the playoffs. Is that really a position of need? Like, does Jim Schwartz need advice? I mean, if he does, should he be your defensive coordinator? In my opinion, I think that move was genuinely made to kind of give the Eagles an insurance policy that if they do lose Jim Schwartz in the next couple of seasons to a head coaching role, then they've got someone that has been around his system long enough to know the philosophies, the concepts, the intricacies, and of course bring his own spin on it from experience as a defensive coordinator in Miami. Although he didn't really do a good job at playing Minkah Fitzpatrick anywhere near remotely in position, and, you know, cornerbacks were dreadful, it's a start. Wide receiver coach Gunter Brewer has left only after 1 season to now go and work at Louisville in the same role, and assistant wide receivers coach Carson Walsh has been promoted. Meanwhile, Chris Wilson on the defensive line, one of the most coveted defensive line coaches in the NFL, he's gone. The Eagles just haven't extended his contract, and in his place, Philip Daniels, someone that's been around the NFL for 15 years, will take his spot again, someone who learned under Chris Wilson in that time. But that's even there, not the only hires. We've had Eugene Chung, another man that has been very prominent around the offensive line and grooming that younger talent. He's now gone. He's just walked off. He haven't extended his contract. And they're bringing in guys that have been assistants or been around the organisation before. G.J. Kinney, the former quarterback that spent 2 years on the Eagles kind of on and off the roster, doing anything and everything the team asked. He's an offensive assistant now. Again, there is a full article documenting all of these hires in the description down below if you want to get some more insights to what's going on. But it does feel like to me as though the Eagles are trying to prepare for a hypothetical for each positional coach. There is a strong chance that many of these guys get poached up. It's nice that you've got names of familiarity to both Peterson's offense, to the Eagles team, and to around the Philadelphia area, but whether or not this will come to anything, who knows? But we've now got to move into the world of Philadelphia Phillies, which is something I know bloody loads about. I love the Phillies. I bloody love baseball. It's my favourite. Oh, Alec Costaval, where are you, buddy? Need your help here? So, the trade for JT Realmuto. Now, I hope I said that right. I don't think I can get it wrong, but if I have, I'll be shocked. So, Realmuto, recommended as, one of the biggest catchers in the game, one of the most phenomenal athletes in baseball. And Realmuto was apparently frustrated with the Marlins because they traded Christian Yelich and Giancarlo Stanton, which is understandable because I play Stanton in my DraftKings quite a lot and he does quite good. So I would be annoyed as well if he wasn't on my team anymore. So he got frustrated. He's like, right, I want to go. And the Phillies were like, right, well, we'll give you Sixto Sanchez, who is very good, and his name is also a number. And we'll give you a couple of other guys and some stuff, and you can go and have them, really. So Realmuto comes in, going to be a big improvement to the outfield. No, he doesn't play outfield. After an All-Star and Silver Slugger campaign. Now, I realised what Silver Slugger was last night. I was quite impressed with myself. That's a good award. Well done, JT, you old... Not Justin Timberlake. Realmuto got the award, didn't he? So well done. So he's got that. Anyway, the Phillies essentially have just decided, hey, we're going to win now. And while Sixto Sanchez is a great prospect, from what I understand, from what limited knowledge I have on baseball with all the numbers and stuff, the team also have a couple of other interesting prospects as well. Guys like Medina, guys like Howard, who can eventually potentially grow into that sort of role and maybe, just maybe, provide some firepower. And the biggest asset here, if we're not just talking about his on-base running and the stealing, where he's very good and fast, because I learned that by reading things, is that, of course, he's got a relationship with old Brycey. Now, for many of you who have been sleeping under a rock, the Phillies and Bryce Harper has been brewing for months and driving all of us quite clinically insane. However, the arrival of Realmuto, someone that Harper snuck a little Washington Nationals cap on, as you can see on that image there, during the All-Star game. I think there's a little bit of a bromance. He was outed after the game as saying they would have won against the Marlins if or on the All-Star game if he was on his team. So it's one of those things where we're now going to see, is that enough to sway Harper? They won a $300 million contract, which is a lot of money. So are they going to maybe swing Harper by saying, hey, we've got your birdie, do you want to come and play? Or is Harper just going to go, nah, lol, just going to sign with the White Sox, actually, because they're giving me bit more money on that front. So that happened. That was a big Phillies move this week. Again, apologies if I've got anything like that wrong, but having watched the ultimate JT Realmuto highlights on YouTube, he is very quick. He throws the ball very hard from the catcher position, and he runs around the bases. I think getting the contact on the ball was a worry in recent years, but he's got better, hence the old Silver Slugger award. And he's now looking poised to be a great asset to this team. And if the Phillies are going to get faster, they want to really benefit off those singles and doubles, then that's the sort of guy who can turn a single into a scored run by the end of it, presumably. I'm so glad I got through that, because that was really... I need a cup of... That was really stressful, like, Jesus. On to the Sixers, though, and they had a flurry of big moves this week. One of them, of course, involving Tobias Harris, which is a huge get for this team. It automatically pushes them into contention for the Eastern Conference, and it's easy to see why. Tobias Harris has been borderline all-star level over the last couple years for the Clippers. He brings over Big Boban as well, so that bromance finally replaces the hole left by TJ and Dario. I'm still not over that, if I'm honest. That is like a relationship breakup in itself. But Harris is around a 43% shooter from beyond the arc, and it finally gives JJ Redick a name to work with outside. I mean, Robert Covington was good, but he was so sporadic, I think, in terms of that long-range shooting. And what Harris does better than most, I think, is floor spacing. See, I can do basketball. I know what I'm doing here. And that's going to really benefit this team. Because as of right now, this Sixers team really struggle, I guess, when inside to create that space. And getting the ball outside to Redick is becoming such a staple. And now when you got Ben Simmons eventually bringing into his jumper, it sort of takes the pressure off him as well. And I think you'll notice this very early on, is even if Harris doesn't come out as a 30-minute type player or a really big breakout game, that if teams are going to try and key in and stop JJ Redick hitting those corner threes, you're going to leave open Harris. And if you want to try and get to the outside to stop Harris breaking in and then pulling up and floating a ball into the hoop, which is what he does by spacing the floor and just kind of pulling up. This move screams Golden Tate and the Philadelphia Eagles. It's a late season acquisition that is done purely to get this team to the next level, where should they make the playoffs, although they probably most likely will, that they've got that complete starting five, arguably the best now in the Eastern Conference, to go out and really challenge the Golden State Warriors. Now, Tobias Harris is a pending free agent, and when you think of this class that's coming up with names like Klay Thompson, names like KD, amongst a flurry of others, it's going to be difficult for the Sixers to have a real presence or key in on a man, their starting power forward now, that could really push this team forward. By having that experience with Harris, by bringing Boban as well, it just gives them that leverage where if they want to sign into a long-term deal in the offseason, they have the guts and the means to do so. So sure, they give up Landry Shamet, and that's a guy that I think a lot of people fell in love with. First round pick, had a lot of potential, but he's bad on defense. And if you think NBA postseason, you don't get very far if you can't play defense, unless your name's actually James Harden doesn't get very far. That's quite ironic, really. But then comes the big move. The Sixers trade Markelle Fultz, who is still a baby at this point. And there are loads of takes floating around the internet as to what people feel about this, like what's going on with Markelle Fultz. Is this time for the era to end? And unfortunately, I think it's right. I mean, what the Sixers get back are essentially draft picks they've given away before, like the protected OKC pick, which went away with the Jeremy Grant trade. That now comes back. And although the Sixers may not get the best out of it, I mean, you've got to think that if you're a GM and you've had a former first overall pick, that this season has been invisible. Last season was invisible. Whether it's mental concerns, whether it's people nagging on the fact he still is very heavily connected with his mother, who has a massive impact on his lifestyle, whether it's the fact that he's dealing with a chronic condition that everyone seems to misdiagnose. It took Sixers Twitter to properly diagnose the injury. No matter what you do, like no one really knows exactly what's going on with Markelle Fultz, or why his play is stagnated, or why he's been unable to break that mold, or why he can't shoot, why they had to break down the mechanics, what injury it was. Unfortunately, no one really knows what the future lies ahead. Like, is this guy going to live up to #1 pick potential? Is he going to be a bust? Is he even going to play basketball again? And if you're a general manager who can get a first round pick, a second round pick, and a player that has the same name as Ben Simmons, but different, I don't know. I mean, since Jonathan Simmons was traded and ended up in Orlando, I think his stats have been dramatically down. So whether that's a San Antonio thing, whether that can be revived in Philadelphia, who knows? But that's not the main point here. The thing is that you've got a player that's stock is doing that, alright? And I'm not talking like, oh, I'm talking like it is just going downhill. Like, there's nothing you can do to stop the decline of Markelle Fultz at this point. And if you don't trade him now, you're probably never going to. It's been the biggest headache on this team since, I would say, the start of the process. I mean, since this whole thing started. Let's ignore the fact it's a #1 overall pick. Let's focus on the fact that the Sixers have got something back substantial and can reinvest that. I mean, it's scary to think that with all this going on, you've now got a starting five of Simmons, Redick, Butler, Embiid, and Harris. Like, that's mad. Like, that genuinely is mental. That now they can cast off that headache without dramatic repercussions onto the performance of play that we see on the court each and every night. So, big thumbs up from me. Big move. Fultz is gone. Future's now. Tobias Harris is in. Big Boban's in. We've got, you know, Mike Scott, whose bio on Tinder would read the regional manager, and that is the single most iconic thing I've ever seen. So Mike Scott is going to be the most loved player in Philadelphia, just behind Cravon LeBlanc on those power rankings, but it's still going to be a huge day for fans of the Philadelphia 76ers. And finally, the Philadelphia Flyers had an interesting week. They started out, you know, continued on their win streak. They beat Boston. It went to 8. Carter Hart become a stud, and everyone is in love with him, and then the streak ended, and everyone's like, oh, well, okay, Carter Hart did everything, and now he comes back next week. So, I don't know, the Flyers have saved their season somehow. They were the bottom feeders of their conference. They're now, I believe, 7 points off a wildcard spot. So, who knows? Are they going to make the playoffs? There's definitely the potential there. I don't watch enough Flyers hockey to, I guess, give you the most informed opinion. But from what I know, by talking to our writers at Philly Sports Network and reading the great work that they put out daily, there could be some waves around the deadline, and one of those names could be Wayne Simmonds. And that is a player I know, and I do like him. But it feels like Wayne Simmonds could be coming to the end of his era as a Philadelphia Flyer. He's been in the league now 11 years, which is crazy, because he looks exactly the same as when he first came into the league, which is interesting. But if Wayne Simmonds does go, and that's kind of the jolt that this team needs, I think Carter Hart has single-handedly injected a sense of optimism into this team that was previously unseen. What's going to happen next? Are the Flyers going to go on? What kind of haul can they get for him? Will it be prospects? Are we going back into this kind of building for the future mentality and stockpiling names? Or are we going to go out and see names potentially, big years now, that are going to be a veteran presence to a very young locker room, provide something that is just going to spark this team in a very different way? I'm hopeful. I think that this team does have life yet. Be a very, very tense end to the season. And a big shout out to our guys who are covering the Flyers beat there at games. We've got photographers, we've got writers, we've got podcasts, we've got everything. So if you're into the Flyers, phillysportsnetwork.com just is the place to be. And that's not because I'm wearing a shirt, which you can get in the link in the description. But I think that's it. I think we've kind of summed up everything that's happened in the last 7 days. If you like this kind of show, guys, I know it's totally different, but that's what we do, all right? We've got a podcast coming out over the weekend. We're going to have a draft film room on a first-round prospect that every Eagles fan is going to be besotted with. We're going to have draft prospect interviews and so much more coming up over at our website as well. So phillysportsnetwork.com for your daily dose of Philadelphia sports coverage. But if you just like what we do on the YouTube channel, I hope you stick around and support us. We would love to get to 10,000 subscribers by my birthday. Now that's April the 6th, if you want to treat me to a nice romantic meal. Maybe not. But April 6th is the date I'd love to get to 10,000 subscribers. And as of right now, we're midway up 6,000, you know? Like, we're over halfway. But with your help, we can create the strongest Philadelphia sports community on the planet. So if you want to be part of that, hit subscribe. Let me know. If you hate this idea and you hate the fact that I'm sipping tea, and it's not a Philly Sports Network mug because it's in the post from America, all right? Let me know about it. If not, then you enjoy the stuff. I hope you stick around for more content, guys. From myself, Liam Jenkins, enjoy your weekend. We'll see you next time for another episode of This Week in Philadelphia Sports.